What would you do if you woke up in a hospital bed, completely paralyzed, unable to move a single finger, unable to speak
Done.
a
Everything went
single word,
exactly as planned.
but you could
Should have
hear
controlling shares by morning.
everything? Now imagine hearing your own husband laughing beside your bed. Imagine hearing him call his mistress and say, finally, she is not going to make it. Imagine hearing them plan your funeral while your heart is still beating, while your mind is screaming, while tears are falling inside, but your face cannot move. This is not a nightmare. This is not a movie. This is
Stop
what
right there,
happened to
Vanessa.
Caroline
Get away
Mitchell
from that
for
bed.
31 days.
Move
They wore
along. You're under
black to her
arrest.
bedside,
Yes,
not to
they
mourn
finally
her,
got what they
to
deserved.
celebrate. They measured her jewelry. They discussed her life insurance. They counted down the days until they could pull the plug. But they made one fatal mistake. They forgot that some women do not die quietly. Some women rise. Some women come back with fire in their eyes and revenge in their hearts. What they did not know was that the helpless housewife they were mocking was actually a billionaire. She owned the company where her husband worked. She owned everything. And she heard every single word. This is the story of a woman who was buried alive by the people she loved, and how she clawed her way back from the grave to destroy them all. Stay until the end, because the final twist will leave you speechless. This story will teach you one brutal truth. People reveal who they really are. When they believe, you cannot fight back. And the moment they celebrate your weakness is the moment they build the stage for their own destruction. Value statement. This story will remind you that your darkest moment is not your ending. It is your beginning. Sometimes you have to lose everything to discover how powerful you truly are. Meaning of the story. The lesson is simple, but life-changing. People reveal their true nature when they believe you are powerless. And when they celebrate your fall, they are building the stage for their own destruction. Never underestimate a woman who has nothing left to lose. She is not broken. She is becoming unbreakable. The day I died was the happiest day of my husband's life. I know that sounds dramatic. I know it sounds like something out of a movie. The kind of opening line designed to hook you in and make you keep listening. But I promise you, every single word of what I am about to tell you is absolutely true. I lived it. I survived it. And now I am going to share my story with you, because somewhere out there, someone is going through exactly what I went through. Someone is lying awake at night, wondering if they are crazy. Someone is questioning their own reality because the person who is supposed to love them keeps telling them they are the problem. Someone needs to hear this story and know that they are not alone. My name is Caroline Mitchell. My friends used to call me Carrie, back when I still had friends. Back before my husband slowly, carefully, deliberately cut every single one of them out of my life like a surgeon, removing healthy tissue. I was 38 years old when my body finally gave up on me. 38 years old, married for 10 years, and I had been running on empty for so long that I forgot what full felt like. I forgot what it was like to sleep through the night. I forgot what it was like to eat a meal without someone criticizing every bite. I forgot what it was like to look in the mirror and see something other than exhaustion staring back at me. That morning started like every other morning of the past decade. My alarm went off at 4:45 in the morning. Not 5, not 5:30, 4:45, because Derek needed his breakfast on the table by 6:15, and God forbid I was even 5 minutes late. The house was dark and silent when I slipped out of bed. Derek was still sleeping peacefully beside me, his breathing deep and even, completely unaware that I was already moving through the darkness like a ghost in my own home. I did not turn on the lights. I had learned to navigate our 5,000 square foot house in complete darkness because Derek was a light sleeper, and if I woke him up Before his alarm went off, there would be consequences, not physical consequences. Derek never hit me. He was too smart for that. But the silence that would follow, the cold shoulder that could last for days, while the little comments about how inconsiderate I was, how I only ever thought about myself, how maybe if I tried a little harder, I would not be such a disappointment. Those consequences were worse than any bruise. I made my way down the stairs, counting each step in my head. 14 steps from our bedroom to the landing, 8 steps from the landing to the foyer, 32 steps from the foyer to the kitchen. I had counted them so many times that I could walk the route with my eyes closed. And some mornings, when the exhaustion was so heavy that I could barely keep my eyes open, that is exactly what I did. The kitchen was my domain. It was also my prison. I spent more hours in that kitchen than anywhere else in the house, cooking meals that were never quite good enough, cleaning surfaces that were never quite clean enough, preparing snacks and lunches and dinners that Derek would pick at and criticize before pushing away. But I kept trying. I kept believing that if I just worked a little harder, tried a little more, he would finally see how much I loved him. He would finally appreciate everything I did. That morning, I was making his favorite breakfast: steel-cut oatmeal with fresh berries, 2 eggs over medium, with the yolks still runny, but not too runny, whole wheat toast with exactly 1 tablespoon of butter, and fresh squeezed orange juice. I had made this exact breakfast hundreds of times. I could make it in my sleep. And honestly, some mornings, I think he said, I was standing at the stove, stirring the oatmeal with one hand and checking my phone with the other, when the room started to spin. At first, I thought I was just dizzy from standing up too fast. I had been having dizzy spells for months, little moments where the world tilted sideways, and I had to grab onto something to keep from falling. Dr. Chen had told me it was probably low blood pressure, that I needed to eat more and rest more and take better care of myself. But how was I supposed to rest when there was always something that needed to be done? How was I supposed to eat when the sound of my own chewing irritated Derek? The dizziness got worse. My vision started going white around the edges, like someone was slowly turning down the brightness on a television screen. I tried to set down the wooden spoon, but my fingers would not cooperate. It clattered against the pot and fell to the floor. I remember thinking that I needed to pick it up, that Derek would be angry if he saw a dirty spoon on his clean kitchen floor, that I needed to keep stirring the oatmeal or it would burn and he would complain. And then my legs stopped working. I hit the kitchen floor so hard that I cracked 2 of the Italian marble tiles that Derek had insisted on importing from Tuscany. I remember lying there, my cheek pressed against the cold stone, staring at the pattern of gray and white veins running through the marble. I remember thinking how strange it was that I had mopped this floor yesterday, that I could see a tiny smudge near the baseboard that I had missed, that Derek would notice it and add it to his list of my failures. I tried to get up. I told my arms to push, told my legs to move, told my body to obey me. But nothing happened. I was trapped inside myself, conscious but completely paralyzed. My chest was so tight that I could barely breathe. Each inhale felt like trying to suck air through a coffee stirrer. My heart was beating so fast and so hard that I could feel it pounding in my temples, in my throat, in my fingertips. I do not know how long I lay there. Minutes, maybe. It felt like hours. The oatmeal burned on the stove. The smell of scorched oats filled the kitchen, acrid and sharp. The smoke detector started beeping, that high-pitched shriek that always made Derek furious. And still I could not move. Derek found me at 6:30 when he finally came downstairs looking for his coffee. I heard his footsteps on the stairs, heard him pause in the doorway of the kitchen, heard him sigh with the kind of exasperation that had become the soundtrack of my life. Carrie. What the hell happened in here? His voice was annoyed, not concerned. He was looking at the burned oatmeal, the dropped spoon, the smoke still hanging in the air. It took him several seconds to even notice me lying on the floor. And then he said something that I will never forget. "Oh, for God's sake," he muttered. "Not this again. Not this again." Like finding your wife unconscious on the kitchen floor was an inconvenience. Like I had done this on purpose just to ruin his morning. He walked over to me slowly, in no particular hurry. He knelt down beside me and pressed 2 fingers against my neck, checking for a pulse. His fingers were cold. His touch was clinical, detached, like a doctor examining a patient he did not particularly care about. "She is alive," he said to himself. Then he pulled out his phone. But he did not call 911. Not yet. First, he made a different call. I heard him tap the screen. I heard the phone ring once, twice, 3 times. I heard a woman's voice answer, sleepy and confused. "Vanessa," Derek said quietly. "Something happened. Carrie collapsed. I'm going to have to call an ambulance. Do not come to the house today. Understand? Stay away until I tell you it is safe. Vanessa." The name meant nothing to me at the time. I had never heard it before. But I would come to know that name very well. I would come to hate that name with every fiber of my being. Derek hung up the phone. Then, and only then, did he dial 911. "Yes, I need an ambulance," he said. And suddenly his voice was different. Suddenly he sounded panicked, worried, like a loving husband terrified for his wife's life. "My wife collapsed. She is unconscious. I do not know what happened. Please hurry." The performance was flawless. If I had not heard him call Vanessa first, if I had not heard the bored irritation in his voice when he found me, I would have believed he actually cared. That is the thing about living with a narcissist. They become such skilled actors that you start to question your own perception of reality. The paramedics arrived within 12 minutes. I heard them burst through the front door, heard their heavy boots on the marble foyer, heard them calling out questions that Derek answered with practiced concern. They lifted me onto a stretcher and loaded me into the ambulance. The last thing I remember, before losing consciousness completely, was the sound of Derek's voice, telling the paramedics that he would follow in his car, that he would meet them at the hospital, that he would be there for his wife. I woke up 2 weeks later in a hospital bed with no memory of anything that had happened in between. But that is not entirely accurate. I did not wake up. My body did not wake up. My eyes did not open. My fingers did not move. But somewhere, deep inside the darkness, my mind clicked back on like a light switch being flipped, and I heard everything. They wore black to my bedside, not to mourn me, to celebrate. The first thing I became aware of was the beeping, a steady rhythmic sound that seemed to pulse through my entire body. Beep, 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 beep. BF. A heart monitor, I realized eventually. My heart, still beating, still fighting, even when the rest of me had given up. The second thing I became aware of was the breathing tube. I could feel it in my throat, a foreign object that my body wanted desperately to reject. But I could not cough. I could not gag. I could not do anything except lie there and let the machine breathe for me. The third thing I became aware of was the voices. Dr. Reeves had just finished explaining my condition to Derek. I had missed most of it, fading in and out of consciousness like a radio station, with bad reception. But I caught the end. After 30 days, Dr. Reeves was saying, his voice gentle but firm. If there is no significant improvement, the family will need to make some difficult decisions about how to proceed. 30 days. The number echoed in my mind like a death sentence. 30 days until my husband could decide to end my life. I understand, Derek replied. His voice was heavy, with what sounded like grief. "This is just so hard, doctor. Carrie and I have been married for 10 years. She is my whole world." The lie was so smooth, so convincing, that for a moment, even I almost believed it. That is how good he was. 10 years of practice had turned him into a master manipulator. Dr. Reeves left the room. I heard the door close softly behind him, and then I heard Derek exhale, long and slow, like a man releasing a breath he had been holding for years. Finally, he whispered, and the word was filled with so much relief, so much joy, that it made my heart ache. Finally, he pulled out his phone. I heard him dialing. I heard the phone ring. "It is me," he said. "She is not going to make it. The doctors just confirmed it. 30 days max, and then I can pull the plug." A pause. A woman's voice on the other end, too quiet for me to make out the words. "I know," Derek laughed softly. "I know. It is like Christmas came early. Listen, can you come to the hospital? I need to see you. I need to celebrate." Celebrate. He wanted to celebrate my death. While I lay in a hospital bed, unable to move or speak, my husband was calling his mistress to throw a party. I wanted to scream. I wanted to sit up and grab him by the throat and demand to know how he could do this to me. I had given him everything. I had sacrificed everything. I had loved him with every ounce of my being, and this was how he repaid me. But I could not scream. I could not move. I could not do anything except lie there and listen as my world fell apart. 2 hours later, Vanessa Cole walked into my hospital room for the first time. I knew the moment she arrived because I smelled her perfume before I heard her voice. It was something expensive and floral, the kind of scent that lingered in the air long after the person wearing it had left the room. I hated it immediately. "Oh, Derek," Vanessa breathed. "Look at her. She looks so peaceful." "She does, doesn't she?" Derek replied, "almost like she knows it is over." They were standing beside my bed now. I could feel them looking down at me, studying my face like scientists examining a specimen. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to open my eyes, to confront them, to fight. But my body refused to obey. "I have been waiting for this for 3 years," Vanessa said softly. 3 years of sneaking around, hiding in hotels, pretending that we barely knew each other at company events. And now, finally, we can be together. 3 years. My husband had been cheating on me for 3 years. While I was cooking his meals and cleaning his house and working myself to exhaustion trying to be the perfect wife, he was spending his nights with another woman, and I had never suspected a thing. "You know what the funny thing is?" Derek said. He sat down in the chair beside my bed, getting comfortable. "She actually thought I loved her. All those years, all that effort, and she never once figured out that I was just waiting for the right moment to get rid of her." "Why did you marry her in the first place?" Vanessa asked. "I thought she had money." Derek laughed bitterly. "Her last name was Hartwell." "The Hartwells are one of the wealthiest families in Texas. I figured she had to be connected to them somehow. Turns out it was just a coincidence. Her family was dirt poor. By the time I realized my mistake, we were already married, and it was too late to back out without looking like a gold digger myself. So you stayed." "So, I stayed." Derek sighed. "I figured I would give it a few years, then divorce her and move on. But then I discovered that she actually had a decent life insurance policy. $300,000. Not a fortune, but nothing to sneeze at either. And I thought, why settle for a messy divorce when I could have a clean payout instead?" I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. $300,000. That was what my life was worth to my husband. That was the price of 10 years of devotion, 10 years of sacrifice, 10 years of slowly erasing myself to make room for his ego. The door opened again. I heard footsteps, slower and more deliberate than before. And then I heard a voice that made my blood freeze in my veins. So the little housewife finally broke down, Margaret Mitchell said. My mother-in-law had arrived. About time. Mother. Derek stood up. Thank you for coming. As if I would miss this, Margaret replied. She walked closer to my bed. I could feel her presence, cold and disapproving, looming over me like a shadow. I warned you about her from the beginning, Derek. I told you she was not good enough for the Mitchell name. A woman with no family, no connections, no breeding. But you insisted on marrying her anyway. I know, Mother. I made a mistake. Yes. You did. Margaret clicked her tongue. But at least now you can fix it. Once she is gone, you can marry someone appropriate. Someone who will bring value to this family instead of dragging it down. Actually, Mrs. Mitchell, Vanessa spoke up, Derek and I have been seeing each other for some time now. We were hoping that once everything is settled, we could make it official. There was a pause. I waited for Margaret to object, to express shock, to defend her daughter-in-law even just a little bit. Instead, she laughed. I know, dear, Margaret said warmly. Why do you think I introduced you to him in the first place? My heart stopped. Not literally, not yet, but it felt like it. Margaret had introduced them. My own mother-in-law had deliberately brought another woman into my marriage. She had orchestrated this entire thing. I found Vanessa at a charity event 3 years ago, Margaret continued. She told me about her previous relationships, about her unique talents for solving problems, and I thought to myself, this is exactly what Derek needs. A woman who knows how to get things done. I did not understand what she meant by unique talents at the time. I would find out soon enough, and when I did, it would change everything. For the next hour, the three of them sat beside my bed and planned my funeral. They discussed the venue, the flowers, the guest list. They argued about whether to have an open casket or closed. Margaret wanted open, to show everyone how peaceful I looked. Derek wanted closed because he did not want to spend money on a fancy dress for a dead woman. Vanessa suggested cremation because it was cheaper and faster, and they could scatter my ashes somewhere remote and forget I ever existed. They talked about me like I was already gone, like I was an inconvenience to be disposed of, a problem to be solved. Not once did any of them express sadness. Not once did any of them shed a tear. The only emotion in that room was relief. When visiting hours ended and they finally left, I lay in the darkness and let the truth wash over me. Everything I had believed about my life was a lie. My husband had never loved me. My mother-in-law had always hated me. And the woman who was about to take my place had been waiting in the wings for 3 years, patient as a spider, ready to catch me in her web. I should have felt devastated. I should have felt heartbroken. But somewhere deep inside me, beneath the pain and the betrayal, something else was growing, something hard and hot and dangerous, anger. For the first time in 10 years, I felt truly, purely, magnificently angry, not at myself for being naive, not at the situation for being unfair, at them, at Derek and Vanessa and Margaret and everyone who had ever looked at me and seen nothing but a servant, to be used and discarded. They thought I was helpless. They thought I was as good as dead. They thought they had won. They were wrong. Night was the cruelest. That was when they dropped their masks completely. During the day, the hospital was full of activity. Nurses came and went, checking my vitals, adjusting my medication, speaking to me in soft, encouraging voices, even though they did not think I could hear them. Doctors made their rounds, discussing my case in clinical terms that reduced my entire existence to numbers on a chart. And Derek played his part, the worried husband sitting vigil by his wife's bedside, holding my limp hand and staring at my face with what he hoped looked like devotion. But at night, when the hallways grew quiet and the visitors went home, the truth came out. It was day 5 when Vanessa came to see me, alone for the first time. I heard the door open around 11 in the evening, long after visiting hours had ended. I heard her heels clicking on the linoleum floor, that distinctive sound I had come to dread. She walked slowly, deliberately, like she had all the time in the world. The door closed behind her. I heard the lock click, and then she pulled a chair up beside my bed and sat down. Just the two of us. Carrie, she said softly. Her voice was different when we were alone. Gone was the sweet, sympathetic tone she used in front of Derek. In its place was something cold, something calculating, something that made my skin crawl. No Derek, no Margaret, no nurses, just me and you. She leaned closer. I could feel her breath on my face. Warm and minty. I want to tell you a story, she continued. A story about a man named Marcus Webb. Marcus Webb. I filed the name away in my memory, though I did not understand its significance yet. Marcus was a sweet guy, Vanessa said. Not too bright, but he had money, and he was easy to manipulate. We dated for about 18 months. He was crazy about me. Could not believe his luck, that a woman like me would be interested in a man like him. He would have done anything I asked. She paused, letting the words hang in the air. One day, Marcus got sick. Nothing serious, just a minor procedure at the hospital. Routine stuff. But while he was there, something went wrong. A medication error, they called it. Someone gave him the wrong dose of something, and his heart just stopped. So tragic. So unexpected. My blood ran cold. She was confessing to murder. Right here, right now, to a woman she believed could not hear her. The best part? Vanessa laughed softly. I was the beneficiary on his life insurance policy. $200,000. Not a fortune, but enough to keep me comfortable while I looked for my next opportunity. And then I found Derek. She stood up and walked around my bed, trailing her fingers along the railing. Derek was perfect, she continued. Rich, or so I thought. Married, which meant a built-in alibi. And unhappy, which made him easy to seduce. Margaret found me at a charity event and practically handed him to me on a silver platter. All I had to do was wait for the right moment. She stopped at the head of my bed and looked down at me. And here we are, she said. The right moment. You, lying here helpless. Derek, ready to sign whatever papers I put in front of him. And in a few weeks, you will be gone, and I will be Mrs. Mitchell, the rich widow who married her true love. She reached down and adjusted my pillow. But she did not adjust it correctly. She shifted it just slightly, just enough to put pressure on my airway, to make my breathing a little bit harder. I felt my oxygen levels drop, not enough to trigger the alarms, just enough to make me uncomfortable. I learned from Marcus, Vanessa whispered. Going too fast is messy. People ask questions. But if you are patient, if you let nature take its course, if you just create the right conditions, well, things happen. Patients fade. Nobody asks questions when a woman in a coma slips away peacefully. She patted my cheek gently. Sweet dreams, Carrie. I will see you tomorrow, and the day after. And every day until you finally do what you should have done years ago and just give up. She walked to the door, unlocked it, and left. I heard her heels clicking down the hallway, growing fainter and fainter, until they disappeared entirely. I lay there in the darkness, fighting for every breath, my mind racing. Vanessa was not just a mistress. She was a killer. She had murdered at least one man before, possibly more, and now she was planning to do the same to me. I tried to move. I concentrated every ounce of energy I had on moving just one finger, just one tiny muscle. If I could move, I could show the nurses I was awake. I could get help. I could stop this nightmare. Nothing happened. My body remained still, unresponsive, trapped. The next morning, a new nurse came on shift. Her name was Rosa Mendez, and from the moment she walked into my room, I knew she was different from the others. "Good morning, sweetheart," Rosa said softly. Her voice was warm and musical, with just a hint of a Texas accent. "I know you probably cannot hear me, but I am going to talk to you anyway." Studies show that coma patients respond to familiar voices, and even if you cannot respond, maybe somewhere deep down, you know you are not alone. She moved around my room with practiced efficiency, checking machines, adjusting tubes, recording numbers. But unlike the other nurses, who rushed through their duties as quickly as possible, Rosa took her time. She touched me gently, carefully, like I was a real person instead of just a body to be maintained. Then she noticed the pillow. She frowned slightly, studying its position. "That is strange," she murmured to herself. "I could have sworn I positioned this correctly yesterday." She adjusted the pillow, putting it back the way it was supposed to be. Immediately, my breathing became easier. The tightness in my chest loosened. I wanted to cry with relief. "There we go," Rosa said. "That is better, is it not?" She checked my oxygen levels and frowned again. "Your numbers were better yesterday," she said. "Let me check the equipment. Make sure everything is working properly." She spent an extra 10 minutes in my room, running diagnostics, making small adjustments. And as she worked, she kept talking. "I want to tell you something, sweetheart," Rosa said quietly. "Something I do not tell many people. My sister was in an abusive marriage. Her husband never hit her, not once. But he controlled everything she did. What she wore, who she talked to, how she spent her money. He made her feel like she was crazy, like everything wrong in their marriage was her fault." She paused, her hands still on the machine. "She stayed for 12 years, Rosa continued. 12 years of walking on eggshells, trying to be perfect, slowly disappearing into someone she did not recognize. And then one night, he pushed her down the stairs, said she tripped. Maybe the police believed him, but I knew. I knew because I had seen the bruises she always tried to hide. I knew because I had heard the way he talked to her, like she was nothing. I knew because I had watched my beautiful, vibrant sister become a ghost of herself." Her voice cracked slightly. "I lost her," Rosa said. "She died at the bottom of those stairs, alone and afraid, and he walked away free. He collected her life insurance money and moved to Florida with his new girlfriend. And there was nothing I could do. Nothing." She pulled up a chair and sat down beside my bed. "I see things, sweetheart," she continued. "I see things that other people miss. And I see the way your husband looks at you. He comes in here, playing the part of the worried spouse, holding your hand for the nurses, asking concerned questions about your prognosis. But I have been doing this job for 22 years. I know the difference between a man who is scared of losing his wife and a man who is waiting for her to die." She leaned closer. "Your husband is waiting," she said softly. "And so is that woman who visits at night when she thinks no one is watching. I do not know what they are planning, but I know it is nothing good. So I am going to keep an eye on you, sweetheart. I am going to make sure nothing happens to you on my watch." She squeezed my hand gently. "If you can hear me," Rosa said, "fight. Whatever it takes, however hard it is, you fight. You do not let them win. You do not let them write your ending." I wanted to squeeze her hand back. I wanted to tell her that I could hear every word, that she was right about everything, that I needed her help more than I had ever needed anything in my life. But my body remained still, silent, unresponsive. That night, after Rosa left, I made a promise to myself. If I survived this, Rosa would be the first person I thanked, and Derek would be the first person I destroyed. On day 14, I opened my eyes. and I chose to keep them closed. It happened in the middle of the night, during one of Rosa's shifts. She was checking my vitals, humming softly to herself, when suddenly, like a switch being flipped, my body started responding to my commands. My eyelids fluttered. My fingers twitched. My lungs expanded on their own, pulling in air without the help of the ventilator. It was like waking up from the deepest sleep of my life, disorienting and overwhelming and absolutely terrifying. Rosa gasped. Oh my God. Oh my God, she is waking up. She leaned over me, her face filling my field of vision. The fluorescent lights behind her were blinding after 2 weeks of darkness. Everything was blurry, colors bleeding into each other like a watercolor painting left out in the rain. But I could see her face, round and warm, and filled with a mixture of shock and joy. Mrs. Mitchell? Rosa's voice was shaking. Carrie, can you hear me? I tried to speak. My throat burned like I had swallowed broken glass. My lips were cracked and dry, but I forced the words out, barely louder than a whisper. Please, do not tell them. Rosa froze. Do not tell who, sweetheart? My husband. I swallowed hard, tasting blood where my lips had split. His mother, the woman, they want me dead. I heard them. I heard everything. For a long moment, Rosa said nothing. I could see her processing, weighing my words against what she had observed over the past 2 weeks. And then, slowly, she nodded. I knew it, she said quietly. I knew something was wrong. I knew that man was no good from the first time I saw him. Okay, sweetheart, okay. I will not tell anyone, but we need to get you stronger. Can you move your hands? Can you feel your legs? I tried. My right hand lifted about an inch off the mattress before falling back down. My legs tingled, like they were full of static electricity. But I could not make them move. That is good, Rosa said. That is a start. Tonight, we practice. We get you strong enough to sit up, to walk, to leave this hospital. Under your own power. And then we figure out what to do about that husband of yours. For the next 3 days, Rosa became my lifeline. She came in during her night shifts and helped me exercise my atrophied muscles, moving my arms and legs through their range of motion, teaching me to grip and release, to flex and relax. She smuggled in protein shakes to supplement the liquid nutrition the hospital was pumping into my veins. She brought me a small mirror so I could see myself for the first time since my collapse. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. My face was gaunt, my cheekbones sharp, my skin pale and papery. My hair was limp and greasy, matted against my skull. My eyes, once bright and hopeful, were dull and hollow. I looked like a corpse. I looked like death warmed over. But I was alive, against all odds, against all expectations. I was alive. And that was all that mattered. On day 17, I was strong enough to sit up on my own. Rosa helped me into a semi-upright position and propped pillows behind my back. For the first time in over 2 weeks, I saw my hospital room from a different angle. The machines surrounding me, the tubes connected to my body, the window looking out over the parking lot. Rosa smuggled in a phone that night, one of those prepaid devices that could not be traced. And I made a call that changed everything. Elliot Crane had been my father's lawyer for over 30 years. He had handled my father's estate when Dad passed away 5 years ago. He was one of only 2 people on Earth who knew my secret, the secret I had kept from Derek, from Margaret, from everyone who thought they knew me. The phone rang 3 times before he answered. Hello? Elliot's voice was gruff with sleep. It was after midnight. Who is this? Elliot. My voice was still rough, still weak, but stronger than it had been. It is Caroline Mitchell. Caroline Hartwell Mitchell, I need your help. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Elliot spoke again, his voice was sharp with disbelief. Caroline? Dear God, They told me you were... Derek came to my office last week. He said you were in a coma. He said you were not expected to survive. He was asking about your estate, about the trust, about what would happen to your assets if you died. I know what he told you, I replied. I know what he has been telling everyone. But I am awake, Elliot. I have been awake for 3 days, and I need access to everything. The trust, the accounts, the properties, all of it. Another pause. I could hear Elliot's mind working, processing this new information. Those bastards, he said finally. I knew something was wrong. Derek was too eager, too pushy. He kept asking questions about the trust structure, about who the beneficiaries were, about how to access the funds. I told him everything was locked down, that he had no authority, but he would not let it go. He does not know, I said. He has never known. He married me thinking I was poor. And now he is trying to kill you for your life insurance, Elliot finished, when really, you are worth more than he could ever imagine. This was my secret. The secret I had guarded for 10 years. The secret that was about to become my weapon. My father, Thomas Hartwell, had been the founder of Hartwell Industries, one of the largest manufacturing companies in Texas. We made everything from medical equipment to aerospace components, employing over 12,000 people across 15 factories. When my father died, he left everything to me, his only child. The company, the real estate, the investments, the properties, all of it locked in a trust that kept my name off the public records. I was worth approximately $800 million, and my husband had no idea. I had hidden my wealth because I was tired of being seen as a dollar sign. Before Derek, I had dated men who only wanted me for my money, men who did not care about my thoughts, my feelings, my dreams, men who saw me as an ATM with legs. I wanted to be loved for who I was, not what I had. So when I met Derek, I pretended to be ordinary. I told him I worked as a freelance accountant. I let him believe my family was middle class. And he had believed me. He had believed me because he wanted to, because the truth never occurred to him, because the idea that his mousy little housewife could be a billionaire was simply too absurd to consider. But now I knew the truth. He had never loved me. He had married me, hoping I was rich, stayed with me because divorcing me would make him look bad, and was now planning to kill me for a $300,000 insurance policy, all while completely unaware that he had been sleeping next to one of the wealthiest women in Texas for the past decade. The irony was almost funny. Almost. Elliot, I said, I am going to tell you everything that has happened, and then we are going to make a plan that will destroy Derek, Vanessa, and Margaret. A plan that will make them regret ever underestimating me. I am listening, Elliot replied. Tell me everything, and I did. I told him about waking up in the coma, about hearing their celebrations, about Vanessa's confession. I told him about the adjusted pillow, the reduced oxygen, the 30-day deadline. I told him everything, and when I was finished, the line was silent for a long moment. Then Elliot spoke, and his voice was hard as steel. They're going to burn, he said. Every single one of them. I am going to make sure of it. I had 12 days to plan my resurrection and their destruction. Rosa continued to help me regain my strength while Elliot worked behind the scenes to prepare my legal counterattack. We communicated through the prepaid phone, keeping our conversations brief and coded in case anyone was monitoring. Every night, Rosa would help me exercise, and every night, I got a little bit stronger. During the day, I pretended to be comatose. It was harder than I expected, lying perfectly still while Derek sat beside my bed and complained about how inconvenient my illness was. Not reacting when Vanessa leaned close and whispered threats in my ear. Keeping my breathing slow and even When Margaret inspected my jewelry and declared it worthless trash. But I did it. I lay there like a corpse while they made their plans, and I listened to everything. On day 20, something unexpected happened. I heard the door open and unfamiliar footsteps enter my room. Not Derek's confident stride, not Vanessa's clicking heels, not Margaret's deliberate shuffle. Someone new. "Mrs. Mitchell," a woman's voice said, "I do not suppose you can tell me what really happened to Marcus Webb." My heart nearly stopped. I had heard that name before. Vanessa had mentioned him during her late-night confession. Marcus Webb, her previous victim, and now someone was investigating his death. The woman walked closer to my bed. I kept my eyes closed, kept my breathing steady, but I listened with every fiber of my being. "My name is Amanda Price," the woman continued. "I am a detective with the Houston Police Department. 2 years ago, a man named Marcus Webb died in this very hospital from what was ruled a medication error. His girlfriend at the time was a woman named Vanessa Cole. The same Vanessa Cole who is now dating your husband and visiting you every single day." She pulled up a chair and sat down beside my bed. "I have been a detective for 20 years, Amanda said quietly. "I have seen a lot of cases, closed a lot of cases, moved on from a lot of cases, but Marcus Webb has stuck with me. Something about his death never felt right. The timing was too convenient. The girlfriend was too calm, and there were things in his medical records that did not add up." She paused. "I could never prove anything," she continued. Vanessa Cole was careful, smart. She knew exactly how to play the grieving girlfriend. She cried at all the right moments, said all the right things, and by the time I started asking hard questions, she had already collected his insurance money and disappeared. I heard her shift in her chair. When I heard that she had resurfaced here in this hospital, visiting another woman in a coma, I knew I had to come see for myself. And what I found? Well, let us just say, my instincts are screaming. She leaned closer. "I do not know if you can hear me, Mrs. Mitchell, but if you can, I want you to know that I am watching. I am watching Vanessa Cole, and I am watching your husband, and I am watching everyone who comes in and out of this room. Because something is not right here, and I am going to find out what." She stood up and walked to the door. But before she left, she placed something on my nightstand. "My card," she said, "just in case someone finds it, just in case someone can reach me." The door closed behind her. I lay there in the darkness, my mind racing. Detective Amanda Price was investigating Vanessa. She suspected what was happening. If I could find a way to reach her, to give her the evidence she needed, I could bring Vanessa down for murder. But I had to be careful. If Derek or Vanessa found out that the police were sniffing around, they might accelerate their plans. They might decide to finish me off before I could talk. That night, I told Rosa about the detective's visit. "She left her card," I whispered, "on the nightstand. But Vanessa came in earlier. I do not know what she did with it." Rosa searched the room carefully, checking drawers, looking under furniture, but the card was gone. "Vanessa must have taken it." "It does not matter," I said. "We know the detective's name now. Amanda Price. Elliot can find her. We can reach out through him." Rosa nodded. "We are getting close, sweetheart. Just a few more days. A few more days, and you will be strong enough to walk out of here on your own 2 feet." I smiled, or tried to. My facial muscles were still weak, still learning how to work again, but the emotion behind the smile was real. For the first time since waking up in this nightmare, I felt something like hope. But hope, I was about to learn, was a dangerous thing, because just when I thought I was finally getting ahead, everything fell apart. On day 24, Derek came to visit in the middle of the night, unannounced, unexpected, and alone. I heard the door open and immediately closed my eyes, letting my body go limp. I had gotten good at faking unconsciousness. I knew exactly how to position my limbs, how to regulate my breathing, how to keep my face slack and expressionless. Derek walked slowly around my room. I heard drawers opening and closing. I heard him moving things, searching for something. My heart pounded in my chest, but I forced myself to remain still. Then I heard him find the phone. Well? Well, Derek said softly. Someone has been busy. I heard him unlock the screen. I heard him scrolling, reading. And then I heard him laugh, cold and humorless. Elliot Crane, he read aloud. Your father's lawyer. Interesting. Very interesting. He kept scrolling. Trust documents, account numbers, and what is this? He paused. You own Hartwell Industries? You have got to be kidding me. You own the entire company? $800 million? And you never told me? He walked over to my bed and stood there, looking down at me. I could feel his gaze on my face, burning with a mixture of rage and disbelief. You lying bitch, he whispered. You let me think you were poor. You let me work myself to the bone at that company, taking orders from people who were beneath me, when you own the whole damn thing. You could have made me CEO. You could have given me everything, and instead you played housewife and watched me struggle. He leaned closer. I heard you, you know, he continued. Vanessa told me you were just a vegetable. But I have been watching the monitors. Your brain activity spikes sometimes. When we talk, when Vanessa talks. You are in there, are you not, Carrie? You are listening to everything. I did not move. I did not breathe. I lay there like a stone, praying he would believe the act. It does not matter, Derek said finally. Now I know the truth, and I am going to make sure that when you die, everything you own becomes mine. He took the phone and left. All my recordings, all my evidence, all my carefully laid plans, gone in an instant. I lay there in the darkness, fighting back tears. I had been so close to escaping, to exposing them, to winning. And now I was right back where I started, worse than where I started. Because now Derek knew about the money, and that made him more dangerous than ever. They say God laughs at plans. That day the devil laughed too. The next morning, everything changed. Derek arrived at the hospital early, dressed in his best suit, looking every inch the concerned husband. But there was something different about him now, a gleam in his eye, a smugness in his smile. He knew something I did not want him to know, and he was going to use it against me. He was not alone. Margaret was with him, wearing black as always, her face set in an expression of grim determination, and Vanessa was there too, hanging back slightly, playing the role of the supportive friend. Dr. Reeves, Derek said smoothly, we need to talk about my wife's care. Dr. Reeves looked up from my chart, his expression neutral. Of course, Mr. Mitchell. What can I help you with? She seems restless lately, Derek replied, agitated. I am worried that she is in pain. Is there anything you can do to make her more comfortable? Dr. Reeves frowned. Actually, her vitals have been improving. Her brain activity has increased significantly over the past week. I was going to recommend reducing her sedation to see if we could encourage more conscious responses. Derek shook his head. With all due respect, doctor, that is not what her family wants. We want her to be peaceful, comfortable, not struggling against machines. There was a long pause. I could feel the tension in the room, the unspoken battle of wills between Derek and Dr. Reeves. Mr. Mitchell, Dr. Reeves said carefully, I understand your concern, but as her physician, my job is to give her the best possible chance of recovery. Increasing sedation at this point would be counterproductive. Derek's smile did not waver. I appreciate your medical opinion, doctor, but as her husband and legal next of kin, I have the authority to make decisions about her care. And I am telling you that I want her sedated. Heavily. Dr. Reeves opened his mouth to argue, but Margaret cut him off. My son has power of attorney, she said coldly. We have been in contact with our lawyers. If you refuse to comply with the family's wishes, we will have you removed from this case and replaced with someone more cooperative. Dr. Reeves stared at them for a long moment. Then he looked at me, lying helpless in my bed, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Suspicion, concern, maybe even fear. I will need to consult with the hospital administration, he said finally. This is a significant change in treatment plan. Do what you need to do, Derek replied. But I expect results by this afternoon. They left. Dr. Reeves stood beside my bed for a long moment, looking down at my face. Something is not right here, he murmured to himself. Something is very wrong. But he did not know the half of it. And by the time he figured it out, it would almost be too late. That afternoon, a nurse came in with a new IV bag. I recognized the medication from the label. Heavy sedatives. The kind that would push me back into the darkness. Would silence my awakening mind. Would make me as helpless as Derek wanted me to be. I tried to resist. I tried to move, to speak, to signal that I was awake. But my body was too weak, still recovering from 2 weeks of atrophy. The nurse attached the IV without noticing anything unusual. Within minutes, the darkness started closing in, thick and heavy, like a blanket being pulled over my head. The last thing I heard before I slipped away was Derek's voice in the hallway. That should keep her quiet, he was saying. Now we have time to figure out how to get access to that trust. I lost 4 days. 4 precious days stolen by chemicals pumped into my veins. When I finally surfaced again, groggy and confused and weaker than ever, I discovered that the world had shifted beneath me. Rosa was gone, fired on false charges of stealing medication. Elliot had been contacted by Derek's lawyers, threatening legal action if he continued to interfere in family matters. And the 30-day deadline was now just 2 days away. Detective Amanda Price had visited while I was unconscious, but she had been turned away at the door. Family only, they told her. The patient was not receiving visitors. Everything I had worked for, everything I had planned, had crumbled while I slept. And now Derek held all the cards, or so he thought, because while I lay drugged and helpless, someone else had been watching. Someone else had been gathering evidence, and someone else was about to turn the tide. Dr. Reeves had noticed the irregularities in my medication. He had documented the family's suspicious behavior, and he had made a phone call of his own. I did not know it yet, but help was on the way. The question was whether it would arrive in time. On day 28, they came at midnight. 3 monsters wearing human faces. I was awake, but barely functional. The sedatives were still in my system, making everything feel sluggish and unreal. The hospital room swam in and out of focus. Shadows seemed to move in the corners of my vision. I could not tell what was real and what was a dream. Then I heard the door open. At first, I thought it was a nurse. Late-night rounds, checking vitals. But the footsteps were wrong. Too many of them. Too quiet. Too deliberate. Is the nurse station clear? Derek's voice, barely above a whisper. I handled it. Margaret, a small donation to the night supervisor. She will be taking a very long break. Good. And that was Vanessa. This needs to look natural. I forced my eyes open a crack. The room was dark, lit only by the glow of the monitors beside my bed. I could see 3 figures standing near the door. Derek, Margaret, Vanessa, and Vanessa was holding a syringe. Same medication as Marcus, she said softly. A little potassium chloride goes a long way. Stops the heart. Looks like natural cardiac arrest. By the time anyone figures it out, if they ever do, we will be long gone with her money. My heart hammered in my chest. This was it. They were going to kill me. Right here, right now, in this hospital bed. "Are you sure this will work?" Derek asked. He sounded nervous. Vanessa laughed quietly. "I have done this before, remember? Trust me. I know exactly how much to use, exactly where to inject it. It will look like her body just gave out." Tragic, but not surprising, she walked toward my bed. I could see the syringe glinting in the light from the monitors. My mind screamed at my body to move, to fight, to do something. But the sedatives held me prisoner. "Goodbye, Carrie," Vanessa whispered. "Say hello to Marcus for me." She reached for my IV line. And then the door burst open. What exactly is going on here? Dr. Reeves stood in the doorway, his face illuminated by the light from the hallway. Behind him, I could see 2 security guards. Vanessa froze. She quickly hid the syringe behind her back, but not quickly enough. Dr. Reeves had seen it. "Doctor," Derek said, his voice smooth as silk. "We were just checking on Carrie. She seemed restless." At midnight, Dr. Reeves stepped into the room. "With a syringe?" "Comfort Care," Vanessa said quickly. "Family authorized pain medication." Dr. Reeves shook his head. "I did not authorize any additional medication, and I certainly did not authorize visitors at this hour. You need to leave. Now." Derek stepped forward, his posture aggressive. "Listen, doctor, I have power of attorney. I have the right to make decisions about my wife's care." "You have the right to consult on her care," Dr. Reeves corrected. "You do not have the right to inject unknown substances into her IV in the middle of the night. Security, please escort these people out of the building." The guards moved forward. For a moment, I thought Derek was going to resist. I could see the rage building in his face, the humiliation of being thrown out like a common criminal. Then Margaret touched his arm. "Let us go," she said quietly. "We will deal with this through proper channels." Derek nodded stiffly. "This is not over," he said to Dr. Reeves. They left. The door closed behind them. Dr. Reeves stood there for a long moment, then walked over to where Vanessa had been standing. He bent down and picked something up from the floor. The syringe. She had dropped it when the door burst open. Dr. Reeves examined the label. His face went pale. "Potassium chloride," he murmured. "High concentration. This would have stopped your heart." He looked at me, and I saw the horror in his eyes. He finally understood what was happening. He finally understood what kind of people my family really were. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said softly, "I do not know if you can hear me, but I am going to protect you. I am going to make sure no one hurts you again." He picked up the phone beside my bed and dialed. "This is Dr. Nathan Reeves at St. Joseph Medical Center," he said. "I need to report an attempted homicide. The next 48 hours were the worst of my life, and that is saying something, considering what I had already been through. First, the investigation stalled. Derek hired the best lawyers in Houston, and they immediately went on the attack. They claimed Dr. Reeves was incompetent, that he had misread the situation, that the syringe contained nothing harmful. Without a formal analysis of the contents, which would take days, the police could not prove otherwise. Second, Derek used his lawyers to get Dr. Reeves removed from my case. They claimed he had developed an unhealthy attachment to his patient, that his judgment was compromised. The hospital, afraid of a lawsuit, complied. My protector was gone. Third, and worst of all, the 30-day deadline arrived. Derek walked into my hospital room on day 30 with a team of lawyers and a stack of papers. He was smiling, that cold, satisfied smile I had come to hate. "I have consulted with the family," he announced to the new doctor who had taken over my case, "and we have decided to discontinue life support." The new doctor, a nervous young man named Dr. Patterson, shuffled the papers nervously. "Mr. Mitchell, I understand this is a difficult decision, but I should mention that your wife's vitals have been improving. Her brain activity is actually quite strong. There is a real possibility that she could wake up. Derek's smile did not waver. Doctor, my wife has been in a coma for 30 days. She has shown no signs of conscious response. The family has discussed this at length, and we believe it is time to let her go peacefully. It is what she would have wanted. I screamed inside my head. It was not what I wanted. I wanted to live. I wanted to fight. I wanted to tear Derek's face off and show everyone the monster hiding behind that charming smile. But my body would not cooperate. The sedatives they had pumped into me had taken their toll. I was weaker than I had been in weeks, barely able to move my fingers, much less speak. Dr. Patterson looked at the papers Derek had handed him. These appear to be in order, he said reluctantly. Power of attorney, family consensus, DNR instructions. Excellent, Derek replied. How soon can we proceed? We will need to follow protocol, the doctor said. Discontinuing life support requires a formal process. We can begin this afternoon. This afternoon. In a few hours, my husband was going to kill me. Legally. With the blessing of the hospital, I concentrated every ounce of energy I had on my right hand. Move, I commanded. Move, damn you. My finger twitched. It was barely perceptible. A tiny movement that could have been dismissed as a muscle spasm. But Dr. Patterson noticed. He leaned closer, studying my hand. Did you see that? He asked. Derek waved dismissively. A reflex. It means nothing. Actually, Dr. Patterson said slowly, it could mean something. Mrs. Mitchell, if you can hear me, try to move your finger again. I focused. I poured everything I had into that one tiny movement. My finger lifted, trembled, and fell. Dr. Patterson's eyes widened. That was not a reflex. That was a deliberate response. Derek's face darkened. Doctor, I really think you are reading too much into this. Mr. Mitchell, Dr. Patterson said firmly, I cannot discontinue life support if there is any possibility that the patient is conscious. I need to run more tests. This is ridiculous, Derek snapped. She is a vegetable. She has been a vegetable for a month. A random muscle twitch does not change that. It might, the doctor replied, and until I know for sure, I cannot proceed. For a moment, I thought Derek was going to explode. I could see the rage building in him, the frustration of being denied what he wanted so badly. But then he took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Fine, he said through gritted teeth. Run your tests. But I expect this matter to be resolved by tomorrow. He stormed out of the room. Dr. Patterson watched him go, then turned back to me. Mrs. Mitchell, he said quietly, I do not know what is going on here, but something tells me you are trying very hard to communicate. If that is true, blink twice. I blinked. Once, twice. Dr. Patterson let out a long breath. Okay, we need to get you help. Real help. He pulled out his phone and made a call. And within the hour, everything changed. On day 31, I rose from the dead. Doctor. Patterson had called in a neurologist who ran a battery of tests and confirmed what I had been trying to tell everyone for weeks. I was conscious. I was aware. I was trapped inside my body, but I was very much alive. The news spread quickly. Dr. Reeves, who had been hovering on the edges of the hospital despite his removal from my case, rushed back to my room. Rosa, who had been staying at a hotel nearby waiting for news, came running. And Elliot Crane, who had been working behind the scenes to prepare for this moment, arrived with a team of lawyers. Derek was not so quick to return. When he finally showed up, he was accompanied by his own lawyers, his mother, and Vanessa. They walked into my room expecting to find a vegetable. Instead, they found me sitting up in bed, weak but alert, surrounded by people who knew exactly what they had done. Hello, husband, I said. My voice was rough, barely louder than a whisper. but strong enough. Did you miss me? The look on Derek's face was something I will treasure for the rest of my life. His jaw dropped. His face went pale. His carefully constructed mask of concern crumbled, revealing the panicked animal beneath. That is impossible, he stammered. You were in a coma. The doctors said you would never wake up. The doctors were wrong. I smiled, or tried to. I heard everything, Derek. Every single word, every celebration, every plan, every threat. Derek turned to his lawyers. This changes nothing. She is clearly confused. The medication has affected her brain. We should proceed with the original plan. Actually, Elliot Crane stepped forward. It changes everything. Your power of attorney was granted under false pretenses. My client was not in a persistent vegetative state. She was being deliberately sedated to prevent her from advocating for herself. I have medical records, witness testimony, and a very angry judge who has already signed an emergency order revoking your authority. Derek's lawyer whispered something in his ear. Derek shook his head angrily. This is absurd, he said. I am her husband. I have rights. You have the right to remain silent, a new voice said from the doorway. Detective Amanda Price stepped into the room, followed by two uniformed officers. Derek Mitchell, you are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and fraud. Attempted murder. Derek laughed, but it was a hollow sound. I never tried to kill anyone. I love my wife. Really? Detective Price pulled out a plastic evidence bag containing the syringe Vanessa had dropped. Because we found potassium chloride in this syringe, the same medication that killed Marcus Webb 2 years ago, the same medication that would have stopped your wife's heart if Dr. Reeves had not interrupted your little midnight visit. Derek's face went gray. That was not me. That was Vanessa. She is the one who... He stopped, realizing what he had just said. Vanessa, standing behind him, went very still. What did you just say? She asked, her voice dangerously quiet. I meant... Derek backpedaled. I meant that I did not know what was in the syringe. I thought it was. You thought it was what exactly? Detective Price asked. Pain medication? Sedatives? Please tell me what you thought your mistress was injecting into your wife's IV in the middle of the night. Derek opened his mouth, but no words came out. For the first time in our entire marriage, I saw him truly speechless. That is what I thought, Detective Price said. Officers, please take Mr. Mitchell into custody. Mrs. Cole, you are also under arrest. Mrs. Mitchell Sr., we have questions for you as well. Margaret tried to protest, tried to claim she knew nothing about any of this, but her objections fell on deaf ears. Within minutes, all three of them were in handcuffs, being led out of my hospital room like the criminals they were. I watched them go, my heart pounding in my chest. It was over. After 31 days of terror, it was finally over. But there was one more thing I needed to do. One more truth I needed to reveal. Derek, I called out. He stopped at the door, turning to look at me. His face was a mask of hatred and disbelief. There is something you should know, I continued. Something I probably should have told you years ago. I do not want to hear anything you have to say, he spat. Too bad. I took a deep breath. You married me thinking I was poor. You stayed with me thinking I was worthless. You tried to kill me for a $300,000 insurance policy. So what? So this. I looked him straight in the eye. I own Hartwell Industries. I am worth approximately $800 million. Every paycheck you have collected for the past 10 years has come from a company that I own. The office where you worked, the building you parked your car in, the water cooler you gossiped around, all of it belonged to me. You have been my employee this entire time. Derek's face went through a remarkable transformation. Confusion, disbelief, horror, and finally, a dawning realization of just how badly he had miscalculated. "You are lying," he whispered. "I am not. And here's the thing, Derek. Even if you somehow manage to beat these charges, even if you walk out of prison someday, you will never work in this city again. I will make sure of it. Every door you knock on will close in your face. Every opportunity you reach for will disappear. You wanted my money so badly that you were willing to kill for it. Now you will spend the rest of your life knowing exactly how much you lost." The officers pulled him away. He was still screaming when they dragged him into the elevator. I hope his voice gave out before they reached the ground floor. They wanted war. I gave them annihilation. The next 6 months were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, media attention, and personal recovery. My story made headlines across the country. Woman wakes from coma, exposes murder plot. Billionaire heiress survives assassination attempt. Husband and mistress arrested after bedside confession. The details that emerged during the investigation were even more damning than I had imagined. Vanessa Cole was not just a gold digger who had targeted my husband. She was a serial killer who had been operating for over a decade. Detective Price's team uncovered 4 previous victims, all men who had died under suspicious circumstances while dating Vanessa. Thomas Keller, a real estate developer who died from a fall down the stairs. Richard Davis, a retired banker who suffered a fatal medication interaction. Paul Montgomery, a construction company owner who drowned in his own swimming pool. And Marcus Webb, the man whose death had first raised Detective Price's suspicions. In each case, Vanessa had been the sole beneficiary of her boyfriend's life insurance policy. In each case, she had collected her payout and moved on to her next victim. She had been doing this for years, perfecting her technique, learning from her mistakes. And Margaret Mitchell had known about all of it. The investigation revealed that Margaret had found Vanessa through a private investigator she had hired to look into my background. The investigator had stumbled across Vanessa while looking into something else entirely and had recognized an opportunity. Margaret had been trying to get rid of me for years. She had been introducing Derek to potential replacements since the first year of our marriage, but none of them had stuck. Until Vanessa. Margaret had met Vanessa at a charity event and recognized immediately what she was dealing with. A beautiful, intelligent woman with no conscience and a proven track record of making problems disappear. She had introduced Vanessa to Derek, knowing full well what would happen. She had practically gift-wrapped her own daughter-in-law for a serial killer. When confronted with the evidence, Margaret broke. She confessed everything, trying to shift as much blame as possible onto Vanessa and Derek. But it was too late. The conspiracy was too clear, the evidence too damning. The trials were brief and devastating. Vanessa Cole was convicted of 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The last time I saw her, she was being led out of the courtroom in chains, her beautiful face twisted with rage. Margaret Mitchell was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and fraud. She received a 25-year sentence. She died in prison 6 months later, alone in her cell. The official cause of death was a heart attack. I cannot say I grieved. And Derek, my husband of 10 years, the man I had loved, trusted, and believed in despite everything. He was convicted of attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and embezzlement. The investigation had uncovered years of financial crimes, money he had stolen from Hartwell Industries to cover his gambling debts. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Last I heard, he owes money to some very dangerous people. The kind of people whose debts follow you even behind bars. I do not expect him to survive his sentence. As for me, I rebuilt. It was not easy. There were days when I wanted to give up, when the weight of everything felt too heavy to carry. But every time I faltered, I remembered what I had survived. I remembered lying in that hospital bed, unable to move, listening to the people I loved plan my murder. And I remembered rising anyway. 1 year after my release from the hospital, I stood on the balcony of my new penthouse apartment, watching the Houston skyline glitter in the night. Hartwell Industries was thriving. Revenue was up 40%. We had expanded into 3 new markets and created over 2,000 jobs. I had been featured in Forbes not as a victim, but as a survivor, as a leader, as a woman who had risen from the ashes of her own funeral to become something stronger than she had ever been before. Rosa was still with me. She had become more than an employee, more than a friend. She was family, the sister I had never had. Detective Amanda Price had been promoted to Chief of Detectives. She and I met for coffee once a month, 2 women who had seen the darkest parts of humanity and had chosen to fight back instead of look away. Dr. Reeves had recovered fully from the injuries Derek had inflicted on him that night in my hospital room. I funded a new wing of St. Joseph Medical Center in his honor, a place where victims of domestic abuse could receive treatment without judgment, without fear, without being turned away because they did not have insurance or their abusers had threatened them into silence. And Elliot Crane, my father's oldest friend, had become my most trusted advisor. He helped me restructure my business, protected me from the legal fallout of my husband's crimes, and never once made me feel weak for needing help. One afternoon, about 18 months after everything ended, I visited my father's grave. It was a quiet cemetery on the outskirts of Houston, shaded by old oak trees and bordered by a small pond, where ducks swam in lazy circles. I knelt beside his headstone and placed a bouquet of white roses on the grass. "You always said I was stronger than I knew, Dad," I said softly. "You always said I would find my way, even when I could not see the path. I did not believe you when you were alive. I thought I was weak. I thought I needed someone else to complete me." I traced my fingers over his name, carved in granite. "But you were right," I continued. "I found my strength. It just took dying to figure it out." I stayed there for a long time, talking to him, telling him everything that had happened. About Derek's betrayal, about Vanessa's confession, about Margaret's scheming, about lying in that hospital bed, listening to them celebrate my death, feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my life. And then I told him about rising, about refusing to give up, about finding allies in unexpected places and fighting back when everyone expected me to fade away. "They thought they had won," I said. "They thought they had finally gotten rid of me, but they underestimated me, Dad. Just like everyone always does." I stood up and brushed the grass off my knees. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. A cool breeze rustled the leaves of the oak trees, carrying the scent of autumn. "I am not angry anymore," I said quietly. I was for a long time. I hated them with everything I had. But hate is exhausting. Hate takes up space in your heart that could be filled with better things. So I let it go. I let them go. And I moved on. I took one last look at my father's headstone, then turned and walked back toward my car. There was someone waiting for me there. A man I had met 3 months earlier at a charity event, who had seen me not as a victim, not as a billionaire, not as a headline, but simply as a woman worth knowing. His name was James Carter. He was a pediatric surgeon at Texas Children's Hospital, a man who spent his days saving young lives and his evenings asking about mine. He had no interest in my money. He had made that clear from the beginning. He just wanted to know me, the real me. I did not know where our relationship would go. I did not know if I was ready to trust again, to love again, to open myself up to the possibility of being hurt again. But I was willing to try. I was willing to take a chance on something that scared me, because that is what survivors do. We keep going. We keep fighting. We keep believing that tomorrow can be better than today. People reveal their true nature when they believe you are powerless, and when they celebrate your fall. They prepare the stage for their own destruction. I was married to a monster for 10 years. I spent 31 days trapped in my own body, listening to people I loved wish me dead. And I rose. Not because I was special, not because I was stronger or smarter or braver than anyone else, but because I refused to let them write my ending. If you are in that hospital bed right now, metaphorically or literally, if someone is standing over you, celebrating your weakness, planning your burial, I want you to know something. You are stronger than they will ever understand. You have survived things that would have broken anyone else. And when you finally rise, when you finally open your eyes and take back your power, you are going to make them regret every single moment they underestimated you. This is not the end of my story. This is just the beginning. Because the woman they tried to bury did not come back for revenge. She came back for the truth. And the truth is this. My name is Caroline Mitchell. I survived. And I am just getting started. If you know someone who needs to hear this story today, someone who is going through a difficult time, someone who feels trapped or invisible or underestimated, please share this video with them. Your share might be the message they need to keep fighting. Drop a comment below and tell me where you are watching from. I read every single comment, and I love connecting with this amazing community. And if you have not already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful story. New videos drop every week. And trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming next. Now, let us begin. This content was carefully researched, crafted, and manually edited by our team to bring you meaningful lessons and real value. Thank you for being part of this journey.